Welcome back, everyone, to another chapter in our Choose the Adventure story. For those of you who are just now joining us in the story, I may highly recommend that you jump back to chapter 1. That way you'll understand the story as it progresses. You may find this story a little bit different than normal stories you've heard, mainly for the fact that you guys control where this story goes. Each chapter ends with a choice what the character does. So if you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let's continue with the story in chapter 5, The Change. Slowly she pulled her hands back and looked around. The trees were all normal, only the light of the moon above them, and silence. "The egg!" she gasped, turning to where it had laid. There, in the spot where the egg once had been, stood a young girl. Her silver hair flowed over her shoulders down past her ankles, and while her face was that of a young child, nearly 8 or 9 years, her eyes were old. Not the wrinkly old, but old as someone who has known time. Ember knew enough about magic to know this wasn't any normal girl, that she held a clue to the Dryad's plan to help them. "Are you," Ember started, "are you the dragon egg?" The girl's wistful face rose to meet Ember's stare, and a gentle, childlike voice spoke. "Is that the form they chose?" Well, no," Ember stuttered. The silver-haired girl looked down at her hands, and a soft gasp passed her lips. "They didn't," raising her hands to her face. "They wouldn't." She turned to face the now still trees. "You turned me into a human?" Her voice was not so gentle. "Of all the things, a deer, a flower, even a cave troll, you chose this?" While the trees didn't respond, their branches moved slightly, creating a soft, merry sound with their leaves, though there wasn't any wind. "Ha ha! Laugh it up!" the girl scolded. Ember had moved closer and was reaching out to touch her long silver hair when the girl turned. She pulled her hand back. "So you were the dragon's egg? I mean, did they turn you into a... She stuttered again. "A human?" The girl walked past Ember back to the center of the clearing. "No, they did not turn your egg into a human." Bending down, she scooped something into her hands and then held it out to Ember. "They chose this shape for your dragon." In her hand was a small creature with large whitish-green wings that slowly opened and closed like a flower. Was it a moth? Ember then noticed one wing had a slight tear along one side, similar to the crack on the egg. "That's the egg?" she inquired, gently taking the moth from the girl's hands. It clung to her fingers and flapped its wings helplessly. "Oh, shh. There now, it's all right," comforted Ember. "You're okay now." The creature calmed at the sound of her voice, and Ember wondered if the moth recognized her voice from all the times she had spoken to it as an egg. "What am I supposed to do now?" Ember thought. Then remembering, she turned back to the unicorn. "Moonstone, how do we go about changing it back into a but stopped when she saw the unicorn was no longer standing by the trees. Her eyes scanned the edge of the woods while her heart began to pound. Moonstone was nowhere in sight. "We'll figure that part out," the voice spoke, and Ember turned to see the young girl again. "The first step was to hold off death," she said, looking up into the night sky. "It's almost a full moon, so I'd say we have a good week's time." "You!" Ember didn't mean to shout, and both the girl and the moth jumped. But Ember stood there, her hand reached out, pointing at the girl, stammering, You! The girl, looking back at Ember, folded her arms in front of her. "Me." "Your moon," she continued to stutter. The silver-haired girl pulled the sides of her dress out and bent into a mocking curtsy. "Moonstone, the human, at your service." Ember stepped back and put her hand to her head. But why? Why change you?" she asked, confused. Moonstone, the girl, moved forward and took the moth from Ember's hand. "Holding back death needed more magic than I, as a unicorn, could spare on my own. So the Dryads changed us into something less magical. Though," she paused, "I would have chosen a different form. I suppose I would have had a hard time explaining this to you if I were a beetle." The fire imp slumped to the ground. The unicorn had given up her magic, and now her egg was a moth, and how was she supposed to fix all of this? "Can you ever change back?" Moon, looking back at the imp, smiled softly. "I think so, if we find the moonstone in time." Ember looked confused. "We have to find you?" "Not me, the moonstone. The stone moonstone." Moon shook her head. The stone I was named after. Trouble is, no one has seen it in over 100 years. Are moonstones that rare? Ember asked. Rare? There's only one moonstone. I mean, there are a lot of stones called moonstone, but only one that really is a moonstone. So yes, it's rare. The girl turned and started walking towards the path into the woods. Ember jumped up and followed her. But you know where it is? Moonstone laughed. I have no clue. When Ember paused, she added, but I know someone who does. And of course, who that is up to you. So as always, up in the right top corner, you'll find the eye icon. Sometimes you have to wiggle the mouse or tap the screen, but you'll see that it'll pop down a poll where you can vote. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me in this story. If you've enjoyed it so far, 2 things you can do to help out. 1, hit that like button, and 2, share the first chapter with somebody, whether it's on social media or with a friend or family member, encouraging other people to join us on our adventure. Thanks again for hanging out with me, and as always, God bless you guys, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye!